Part 1. Beyond the surface of improvements. To speak of Kaizen as merely continuous improvement is to observe the surface of the ocean and claim to understand the tectonic plates shifting beneath. Most literature on Kaizen, the methodologies birthed in the post-war Japanese industrial miracle, is relegated to the realm of simple management tips. Keep your desk clean, track your steps, optimize your workflow. These are the ripples. We are here to discuss the current. To the top 0.01% of thinkers, the architects of high-performance systems, human habit, Kaizen is not a tool. It is an epistemological framework for the management of reality. When we examine the history of human progress, we see a recurring error, the obsession with the quantum leap. We love the narrative of the overnight success, the genius who solves a problem with a stroke of lightning. But human systems, both biological and organizational, are inherently resistant to radical, abrupt change. The body rejects a transplant. The organization rejects a radical restructuring. This is where Kaizen begins, not as an act of will, but as an act of alignment with the fundamental laws of nature. Part 2. The physics of resistance. If you want to understand why most improvement efforts fail, you must start with the second law of thermodynamics, entropy. Every system, left to its own devices, trends toward disorder. Your desk, your company's communication channels, your morning routine, all are subject to the inexorable decay of structure. Most people attempt to combat this decay through massive, discrete interventions. They decide to overhaul their diet on Monday or reorganize the company architecture in a quarterly sprint. They are fighting entropy with high-energy bursts. The result? A momentary spike in order followed by a catastrophic collapse back into chaos. The elite practitioner understands that change is an energy-intensive process. To force a system into a new state requires a high activation energy. By attempting big change, you trigger the brain's amygdala, the fight or flight center, which perceives radical change as a threat to safety. The system rebels. Kaizen is the art of minimizing activation energy. By reducing the scope of change to a level so infinitesimal that it barely registers as a change at all, you bypass the amygdala. You aren't forcing the system to move. You're subtly altering the terrain so that the system naturally flows into a more efficient configuration. You are managing the physics of human behavior. You are essentially cooling the system down until the transition to a higher state of order becomes the path of least resistance. Part 3. The cybernetic feedback loop. Let us borrow from cybernetics. A system is only as good as its feedback loop. If your goal is to optimize a rocket's trajectory, you cannot wait until it has traveled 10,000 miles to make a correction. You need a high-frequency sensor that detects microscopic deviations in real time. Most professional and personal development programs fail because the feedback cycle is broken or attenuated. A student waits for an exam score. An employee waits for an annual review. By the time the feedback arrives, the data is stale, and the necessary correction is now a massive, painful deviation. Kaizen is the compression of the feedback loop. When you apply Kaizen to a process, you are essentially increasing the sampling rate of your reality. You create a microcosm, a Jimba, the place where the truth lives, where you can iterate and receive data within minutes. This is not just improvement. This is iterative reality star sting. If you are a coder, you aren't writing 1,000 lines of code before testing. You are testing at every function. If you are an investor, you aren't waiting for the market to reveal your errors. You are stress testing your thesis with every trade. By shrinking the experiment, you minimize the cost of failure. You don't fail, you gain information. This transforms the entire nature of work from a pass/fail event into a continuous, high-frequency stream of data points. Part 4. Epistemological humility and the death of the ego. The greatest obstacle to progress is not ignorance. It is the illusion of knowledge. In philosophy, we call this the expert trap. Once a person reaches a level of mastery, they stop observing the world as it is and start observing it through the lens of their mental models. Kaizen requires what the Zen tradition calls shashin, or beginner's mind. Why? Because the moment you decide you know the best way to do something, you cease to see the waste, muda, that is staring you in the face. You become blind to the inefficiencies you have already internalized. The 0.01% of elite Kaizen practitioners are the most humble people in the room because they treat every single day as a new experiment. They do not look at their processes as finished. They look at them as perpetual hypotheses. This is the scientific method stripped of its lab coat and applied to the mundane. If you assume that every single one of your habits, from how you brush your teeth to how you negotiate a multi-million-dollar contract, is currently suboptimal, you open yourself to a world of infinite discovery. You stop defending your methods and start interrogating them. Part 5, the economics of compounding. Economically, we understand compound interest. We know that $1,000 invested at a 10% return over 40 years becomes a small fortune. But we rarely apply this to the structural efficiency of our lives. The Kaizen mindset is the equivalent of a compound interest calculator for behavior. When you improve a system by 1% each day, you are not just seeing a linear increase. You are participating in an exponential function. This is often misunderstood as 1% better every day. The real insight is not in the percentage, but in the permanence. If you make a change that saves you 10 seconds every time you perform a recurring task, and you perform that task 50 times a day, you have reclaimed 500 seconds, nearly 9 minutes, every single day. That is roughly 50 hours of time saved in a year. The elite practitioner does not look for the 100-hour breakthrough. They look for the 10-second friction point. They understand that by removing these tiny, microscopic barriers, they are essentially buying back their time, their focus, and their cognitive bandwidth. They are building an engine that runs with less internal friction than anyone else's. Over years, this efficiency advantage becomes insurmountable. It isn't that they work harder, it's that their systems have less drag than yours. Part 6, the synthesis, making excellence automatic. The ultimate goal of Kaizen is not to be constantly fixing things. That would be exhausting. The ultimate goal is to automate the improvement. You want to reach a point where your systems are self-optimizing. You do this by integrating the Kaizen philosophy into your identity. When you see a piece of waste, you don't feel frustrated, you feel curious. When you make a mistake, you don't feel shame, you feel data. You have successfully shifted your identity from someone who performs a task to someone who refines systems. This is the transition from a worker to an architect. 1. Map the system. Identify every step of your process. 2. Identify the friction. Find where the energy goes to die. Where are the bottlenecks? Where's the frustration? 3. Micro-experiment. Implement the smallest possible change that could theoretically reduce that friction. 4. Observe and iterate. Did the friction decrease? If yes, keep it. If no, discard and try again. 5. Codify. Once a micro-improvement is validated, it becomes the new baseline. Never regress. Part 7. The philosophy of the infinite game. Ultimately, Kaizen is a rejection of the finite game. Most people treat life, career, and business as finite games, with a start, an end, a winner, and a loser. They want to get there. They want to reach the goal, finish the project, retire, and be done with it. But the 0.01% know that the game never ends. Life is an infinite game. There is no finished. There is no perfect. There is only the continuous process of refinement. If you believe there is a finish line, you will eventually reach it and then find yourself in a state of entropy once again. Kaizen is the philosophy of someone who has chosen to play the infinite game forever. It is the practice of finding joy in the process, of finding beauty in the minute details, and of finding peace in the constant, quiet, steady climb. When you embrace this, you lose the anxiety of the outcome. You no longer fear the failure of a big project because you know that a big project is just a collection of small tasks, all of which are subject to your refinement. You have decoupled your ego from the result and attached it to the system. This is true mastery. It is quiet, it is steady, and it is the most powerful force for change in the known world. You are not just making things better. You are perfecting the way in which the world unfolds through you. As you internalize these deep structural principles, which specific system in your life, whether it be your professional workflow, your creative output, or your daily personal maintenance, do you feel is currently suffering the most from the entropy of complexity that we discussed?